Who has demos? Oh, Antoine, do you have a demo?
Yes, I have a demo. Of a demo.
I have 2 demos. Jasmin has done nothing. Well, he did things, but not worthy of a demo. That's okay. These are useful too. And topics, we'll see release. Maybe other topics, we'll see. So status, checking. Oh, it's blocked. Nothing new. Yeah, I didn't see anything. No new PRs. I think there's a PR, but we'll triage it on Thursday. And so we are waiting for Benedek to release this thing to 1.10.3. Cool. Way more things, and there were no meetings since 3 weeks ago. Let's see this one. What's the date on this one? Yes, so that's 21 days ago. And if I look on the dev branch, which is the left one, we have, let's see this one, commits. This one we talked about, so it must be 20 days ago. Let's see 20 days ago. 20 days ago, fix is you multiselect the index, so fix for the content picker. Fixing title in contents metadata. Yes, I saw that during a demo. I was duplicating the name of the type of the item for some debugging, and I pushed some debugging code, so that's bad. No reference exception when reading stereotype, which can be null. Update assets reference to use app relative path. That's a big change. That's a big change. It's not a breaking change, but now it's recommended to use // for any asset, any static file. The idea being that / will work because we serve the static files from modules as root static files, but if you are running in IIS with a virtual path, then it won't work, so you will need to use // which will work in this case. So for all our themes, we will always use // because we want to support IIS with virtual path, but if it's your own theme, you might not care if you don't use that feature. But this will still be a recommendation on our side, and we had to change all the assets. You see here between / to /. And liquid and razor tags support that. Do you have a liquid example? Do I have a liquid example? Well, in the case of liquid, it's supporting the tag helpers like this, or we have to do does it work actually? Does it work? How does it work? It should not work. Somebody will confirm that, but I don't think it will work because it will just paste it. We should use pipe href in this case.
That's what I made a change. It wasn't working anymore and made a PR.
Did we merge?
Yes.
Okay, later. Okay. Thank you. Appveyor script maintenance and Appveyor, which is commenting out this thing, which is installing a custom version of 2.2.1. We don't need that. And updating the keys for to deploy my get and NuGet, and these are public because these are encrypted, so that's fine. Making it faster to build, and I assume there are more changes after that. Revert HTML body parts with wysiwyg toolbar to be always visible. One change we did was breaking some features, so it's reverted. Fixing popper.js usage. I assume the URLs. Yep. Improve the HTTPS module. Enable strict transport security option. Yes, that's the option that has been added. Fixed text graph for long file names in media table view, which made the mobile view not work. Now it's correctly working on mobile views. Building only merge commits. This is optimization on the build system so that we only build the merge commit and not the branch itself. It makes builds faster. Adding artifacts property for Appveyor to publish. Yeah, so the issue is that you see here I have 5 commits to fix the Appveyor. The issue with the Appveyor script is that it could only be tested on the dev branch. I could not test it on the PR branch, so I had many failures. But now everything works fine. Placement match provider, we merged that from Keith. Very good PR, which is adding extensibility where there were already some extensibility points in the placement file support, but now he added more and added some extensibilities, so extensions, which is the fact that you can now support placement filters with the content types and the content part and the path of the current URL or the current page. Also some minor tweaks on the way you have to define the placement files. So better placement file support, very good, and extensible, more extensible. Adding response compression module, which I will show you. Response compression module. So new module, and not just that, I think. Oh yes, just that, but there is something else later. We'll see. So response compression module, which when enabled will compress the response from the server using either algorithm that is supported by the client. I think by default is the Bartoli one, then there is a gzip one. It's just about using the correct middleware and setting a cache control in the header. In this case, it is oh yeah, there are two things here. There are many things here. Okay, let's look at the response cache compression, which is an add response compression. Enable for HTTPS equals true, because by default it doesn't work on HTTPS. You might want to make it an option, or you can just disable the feature if you don't like it. There are some security implications when you compress HTTPS responses, but I enable it by default, otherwise there would be no response compression if you enable the feature, because we work on HTTPS by default. So if it's disabled for HTTPS, it doesn't make any sense. So feel free to not enable the feature if you don't like it. And that's it. Is there an option? There is no option, so it's a super simple module. Then in this PR there are other improvements. So it's enabling the response compression, but it's also setting max age headers for the static files. And we serve static files in different locations. The first location is the media folder, and in this case I defined the default cache for 7 days. Okay, so the media files will be cached for 7 days on the client and the proxies. There is another one here for the tenants. So each tenant folder can have static files. I don't know anyone who is using this feature, but this is the same as static files here. And then the third location is in all the module static files. And in the case of the modules, I put 1 year because this file never change on the server. They change whenever you upload a new package. So I put 1 year. And at some point we'll make these values be configurable in the configuration file and not hard-coded. Once we merge the next PR next week. You'll see. I will do a demo today again on that. ClockExtensions create dateTimeUtc variable and ignores it, so that's bad. The ClockExtensions were not using the correct UTC time. That's fixed. Jasmine fixed it. Then fixing workflow edition, script issues. The script were not correct. Admin tree fine-tuning styling. So fine-tuning, it's not just fine-tuning, it's super tuning styling. It's an awesome new admin menu. We can show that. We can talk about that during the next demo. Fixing workflow items index, issues, fix overflow, blah blah blah. Replace Facebook by Azure AD, bad copy paste. Fixing media deployment by Jasmin. Google Authentication has been added, so now you can authenticate with everything. I don't remember what. So we have Google Authentication, we have Facebook Authentication, we have Microsoft Authentication, Azure AD Authentication. I think we have Twitter Authentication also. I'm not sure we have GitHub Authentication. Fixing the result pages and routing issues with the update to 2.2. There were some issues with routing. Coming soon, fix path. Thank you, Antoine. And I assume, Antoine, you want to say something, or this just?
No.
Thank you. Just to be sure. Fixing upgrade with stable prefix. So I fixed the upgrade code. We have some code here, not this one, but this one. This is upgrade from beta 2, which will upgrade the namespaces of the shell descriptors in the database if you're coming from beta 2 to beta 3 automatically. And I think I will add the code to fix the HTML, the body part change and the title part changes. I will add some SQL queries to update the data to change that. If you have some, I know Jasmine has some. I will take them to add automatic upgrades on this one. Fixing small UI issues, updating the ASP.NET Core module v2 for IIS in the web config. Lots of changes, but 3 weeks of changes. Fixes URLs, host, and prefix in background task, so background task fix. Missing media files with the media feature on the coming soon recipe. Azure Blob storage BasePath issue is fixed. Text field editor. So Antoine added new text field editors for a color, for an email, for a telephone number, and for a URL. They are just client-side based editors. Like, let me show you. Edit, you see here, type tell, and there will be also a type email. So on the client side, it can validate that it's a correct thing. Added authorization check prior to creating new document. There was a security issue here that if you call into the API to create a content item, the security check was too late. Some item, empty item, will be created already before the security check because of that. Added the gap between add user button and search box in mobile view. And I assume we are missing something here, which is if this is authorized, we should also cancel the session. someone can create an issue or fix it already, we should just resolve iSession and say cancel, session.cancel. Because if we pass this check, this one is less permissive, so we might still fail this one, but the content item will be created. So we should then revert the transaction. And in this case, I think we don't even need that. Yeah, we might still need that because this might still. Maybe we don't. No, actually, I don't think we need that if we roll back the transaction here, because this won't issue a request until we reach the end of the request. A query until we reach the end of the request. Sorry. Added the gap between add users, so UI fixed importing roles from setup recipes using existing documentation. So based on documentation, he fixed the code to reflect the documentation. Otherwise, we could not import roles as a set of permissions. Fix permission issue, just to hide the Lucene pages if you don't have access to it. Prevent liquid tag helper conflicts. Well, it's fixing some merge conflict actually. Oh no, it's fixing some conflicts between properties of liquid and their tag helpers equivalent. Fixes multiple tenant shell initialization. So there was an issue that tenants could be not loaded in some cases because of that call, which was wrong. And optimize modules loading from Chantieri, optimization at the startup time, and rename admin tree to admin menu from Jasmine. So now it's called admin menu and not admin tree. And I merged this new module health check, which is right now it's just adding an endpoint to plug into more health check. The idea is that if you go to health/live, then you get a status code and a page describing if the system is working or not, and it's useful when you deploy, for instance, on Kubernetes. So the management system can create new machines or recycle machines if they are not healthy. And we should have new features that will expose the health of different services, like Azure Blob Storage, if you use that, the database, is the memory healthy, is the CPU healthy, or whatever. And it's all extensible, it's based on ASP.NET health check feature. Good. Questions? And then demos. I will start with mine, and after we finish by the best one. Okay, so the first one I will show is already loaded here. Actually, I will show the same thing here. This is what Chantieri has been working on lately, which is the configuration. I started the work, but he did 95% of it after, which means he owns that. The idea is to fix the configuration issue that is open here, and this one will go in beta 3. And the issue is, if you look for configuration, I filed it by, well, I'm sure if I look at the PR, I will point to the issue. It fixes so many issues. Provide a pertinent configuration story. Re-implement file share settings configuration provider. Orchard environmental settings discussion. And use JSON for size settings. So let's open all of them just to see everything that it's fixing. It's a big change, but there will be an update. So provide a pertinent configuration story. The idea is that when you have multiple tenants, you might want them to behave differently in terms of Redis connection strings, in terms of Azure Blob Storage connection string, or email sending, whatever can be set in configuration. Before this PR, there was no way to do that. The configuration was for the app entirely. So you could have in your system, like if I look at that, you can have logging, and that's it. Okay, that's for the app. Now what we have is a way to define configuration per tenant. Okay, and I will show you how it works. And you see this section, which was not like this before actually, but there was a section. So provide per tenant configuration. What it also fixes is re-implement file share settings configuration provider. This one is, so this file is and was a file to list all the tenants. Yeah, and this issue is about so how to parse the tenant JSON. So if you're not using the CMS, the default provider for tenant names is a file containing the list of tenants. Okay, if they are static, if they are not dynamic, it's in a file. That was it, and it was using the configuration API to load it, which is not the way it should be done, because it should just list the tenants and not the configuration. So this PR also fixes it, and I'll show you why. Orchard environmental setting discussion. Here the issue is that when you're in development or test or production, you want to be able to define different settings, okay, even site settings or configuration settings. And so this PR is fixing it, the idea being that we want to be able to define configuration by environment, like production, test, and so on, and also related to environment variables. So the idea will be that we can also define configuration by environment variables, so that when you switch to different environments, they will take that into account. If your environments have the configuration in an environment variable. And finally, use JSON for site settings, because we were using YAML just for the site settings, and we had a YAML configuration provider for that. So this PR also removes the usage of YAML and uses JSON for the site settings. So how does it work and how does it look like? If I go to my app data, that's a big change, okay? Even coming from Orchard 1. So I delete my app data to create a new site, and I run the thing. And we'll see the obvious changes first. If you have questions or comments, don't hesitate to interrupt me. So it goes in the setup, as usual. Software as a service, because I want to create tenants, I will use SQLite. Same user, same password. This is an expected exception because I was looking for exceptions. Let me remove it, but this should be that. So this one is just that this pose was called before the commit async, so it's expected. I should change SQL to not throw if it was already disposed. Don't worry about that. Okay, so it will continue and submit. So I have the site, and if I go to the folder, because I have one tenant now, I go in app data, and the first thing you will see is a tenants.json that you didn't see before. Before, every site had a folder and the site setting inside, and this is how you had a list of tenants. Now you have tenants.json that will list all the tenants, and this is now the default. Either you use or not the CMS modules and the tenants management module. The list of tenants will be in tenants.json, and this file looks like this. It's a JSON document containing a name of a tenant and its properties. The properties you can have inside this file are state, URL prefix, and you can have URL prefix, you can have request host, what's the name? Request host, the domain, and there is another one which is obvious but I don't recall. So doesn't matter. That's the idea. So that's just a list of tenants. What does a tenant require to be started? Okay, that's the only thing. And I think features maybe also. You can have features. If you want to set the features, you can have a features list here. That's it. Then if I go, so logs should have the thing. If I go to sites, I have a default. And if I go to default folder, there used to be a site settings file. Now there is an app settings.json. Okay, it's all about configuration. It has nothing to do with the name of the tenant and if it's running or not, the prefix, the domain. No, it's just the configuration of the application, of the tenant system, which is a micro application. So if I open this one, the only configuration that it has so far is the default tenant. The only module, there is almost no module that are enabled, and they don't require any configuration. The only thing is that the module Orchard data requires the database provider, which in this case will be SQLite. Okay, you can have tenants that don't have database providers, so this thing is in app settings JSON. It's not in tenant JSON. Okay, and that's a JSON document. So what it fixes is that the tenants file now is common to every Orchard core instance that is multi-tenant, not just the CMS. The app settings JSON will contain only the things that are specific to a tenant and are in JSON and no more in YAML, so we remove the dependency on the YAML package. So that's the first thing. This thing now could also be in the configuration if we wanted, but it will vary, so we should not change this file. And this file is there because we need to be able to change it. Okay. Now if I create a new tenant from a blog recipe, for instance, I don't need to set that. I will create it. As soon as I say create it, if I go to the tenant file, we have the new tenant created. This is the repository of the tenants. Okay, the tenant is named blogged. This is the request URL prefix, and this is the state. But there is no folder yet. There is a folder yet, and there is an app setting. So it creates a tenant like this, but this should be empty. Let's see. This should be empty. There is a secret. Oh yes, there is a secret. So the secret is when the tenant is... maybe this should not be here actually. No, that's fine. That's from the... I say that's from the setup module. That's not from the generic tenant. That's from the setup module. So this is a secret for the setup module to only allow users that have access to this URL. You see here there is a token. This is based on the secret. So nobody can go on the setup of the blog but you. You are the only one to be able to have access to the blog setup. So if I click and I set up that thing and I use the blog recipe, slower than usual, maybe it's because I'm on debug mode. The blog is created, and if I go back to the app settings, now it has the database provider, which has been initialized because I went into the setup. It wasn't defined before. It could have been defined when I created the tenant, and in this case it will not ask me for it on the setup screen. And that's all it has right now. Could it have more things? It could, but we don't care right now. So that's the first change. Now some change that come with that is we have an app settings JSON to define custom settings for this tenant. We also can have, but we will mostly never see that, an app JSON settings in this location that will apply configuration properties for all the tenants. Okay, and we can also have one here, so we can define it at this level here also. So in this case, usually this one will never be updated by the application because it's not accessible. You don't need the rights to write things on this folder. That's fine. But this one is for the main application. So what you can do now, if you want to define a custom setting, you open that. And for all the modules, if you want to define settings for Orchard Core, you create a section called Orchard Core, and then the settings will be, example, orchardcore.email for the module. But this is not hard-coded. This is a convention. Like if I look at this configuration here, Orchard Core Media Azure is obviously for the module Orchard Core Media Azure, and if I open it here and I go to the startup, what it does is it will resolve an iShell configuration. So the iShell configuration is a new interface which is implementing iConfiguration as in ASP.NET, but as the configuration just for this tenant. If you want the configuration for the app itself, which means the configuration that contains logging and everything else which is at the app level, you resolve iConfiguration. If you want the tenant configuration, which is from Orchard Core section, then you will just do iShell configuration. Okay. And in this case, we configure the media blob storage options, which is an option object, using the configuration in the section Orchard Core Media Azure. That's how it does that. So we could just have use configuration itself and define properties at the top level under Orchard Core. But in this case, to be clean and to separate every module configuration, we suggest to use a section that is the name of the module. That's just by convention. There is no thing mandatory in this case. And you see connection string, container BasePath, public host name. It will just bind it to the object of type media blob storage options, which has this property, and inherits from this class which has the other ones. If you not want to use the automatic binding of options using the configure property on the DI in ASP.NET, you can also access each property individually like this. That's what it does. In this case, it binds to the option and also checks every property that is valid before registering the things in the DI. Okay, that's how it works. And now any module can use the configuration to pass things. And that's why I was saying when I was reviewing the changes in the not here in the Git repository, when I mentioned that there were some hard-coded values in the media folder, like you see for the caching. I hard-coded 7 days and 365 days. Now instead of hard-coding that, we should take them from configuration. Anything that is hard-coded should be placed in configuration with the default value, so we can change it for everything or per tenant. And how does it work per tenant is there are two options. Either so you can define all the tenants. So this will be applied for all tenants, okay, by default because it's on Orchard Core. Now, if you want to define some custom value for a specific tenant, there are two options. Either here you will use the name of a tenant as a section name, like this, and you can repeat that just for this tenant, okay? Or you can define the value in the app settings of the tenant file here. You could say that. That's how it will work. And also, what is interesting is that when you access the shell settings, whenever the shell settings or because from the shell settings you have access with configuration to the iShell configuration, but if you resolve that and you assign a value to the shell configuration, then it will be persisted inside the app settings file here. So you can update the configuration in this file because it's pertinent and it's updatable. Okay, that's how it works. The nice thing but that happens by using the ASP.NET configuration is that now we can have many sources. So here what we have as sources, we have the main app settings files, the specific tenants app settings files, but we also support app settings files per environment. So you can do app settings dot production, app settings dot staging, app settings dot development. That's the first thing. Second thing, which is super nice, is that we support environment variable. So if, let me show you, if you create an environment variable that looks like this, Orchard Core, and actually it's underscore underscore, because that's how it's done for the sections in configuration. So you Orchard Core underscore underscore, and then you have Orchard, what was it? Orchard dot media dot Azure, and it was what? This is a section, so it's underscore underscore, and then there was connection string. Okay, so now you can put the connection string of your Azure Media Management in environment variable. And you can also define it per environment. Yes, per environment. Like you could have for a specific environment a specific value, but that's just standard things. Here, what else? That I have something else. Oh, let me see. Yes, that, and also command line. By default, when you start an Author.CMS project, or you use the standard configuration for an ASP.NET app, it will also look up for the values in the command line. So you could start like .NET run whatever application you have, like Author.CMS, and then pass custom parameters like, in this case, I think it will work if you said Orchard core dot Azure, colon Orchard dot media dot Azure dot connection string, colon connection string. That will work. Okay, that's how you will pass things. So if you want to run an app with specific thing, you can do that there. And you can even do that for a specific tenant. You could say dash dash here blog for my blog tenant as a section. Okay, so you can even use command line now, and any other source that you want to add. This is an example here. And the last thing is that the goal is also to be able to force, for instance, the database provider for all new tenants. So you could start your app with a database provider, or you could define it in an environment variable. So you could say something like Orchard core database provider and put SQLite. This way, when you go in the setup page, because it will be already defined, it won't give you the choice to do that, and you will force the users to use SQLite. Okay, so that's and any other option that you will want to pass to any tenant. It happens that this one, when set, it won't allow you to define it on the setup screen even when you create a new tenant. Okay, it will use the predefined one. So that's a nice trick. And that's any questions about that? I think that's super useful. That's a very important set of features. And the next thing to be able to merge it is to fix a bug with the setup screen and the tenant screen when values are predefined. We found the issue and it's about to be fixed, so to fix that. And the last thing is to add an upgrade from beta 2 upgrade from beta 2, so that any site that has been created already without the tenant JSON and without the app settings JSON will be upgraded to that. So it will be transparent for you. Your sites will convert automatically if they are already running. That's very important. Questions, feedback? Good. Last thing before I leave it to Antoine is the demo about the caching thing. So now, if I do F12 and I go to network and I do F5, you should be able to see. So this is from memory cache, Control F5. I don't know how, maybe because I'm on development, from disk cache. You see now it's from disk cache. It used not to be the case. Accept Control, you see max age, now there is a max age. So now the static files will be cached in the client, and that's super important for performance. This was not the case before, and I assume this is bad for all the websites that are running. This is the first thing. And then also response. Now if I go to the admin, and I go to configuration. Oh, by the way, you notice the new nice shiny menu, which works beautifully on a mobile app. I tried with my phone, and you will be able to try after also with Antoine's demo. So you click there, this is the blog. You click there, this is, see, it's beautiful. It works, content, types, and you can, so I have my screen. No, you can go down usually, yes, with the scroll bar. Okay, it's beautiful. Thank you, Jasmine, for that. And I was showing the file. If I go to configuration modules, response cache, response compression, I will enable this one. And now if I go to the blog and I do F12 and I refresh, if uncheck that, because this is for the files, okay? If you don't want to see the cache working, you have to uncheck that. I had this issue. But now, if I look at this page and the result, You see response header, content encoding, Brotli. So it has been compressed using a Brotli algorithm, just because we enabled the feature. And this is the content should be, it's decrypted. Well, that's fine. That works. And if your client doesn't support Brotli, then it will use gzip. Beautiful. Perf improvements in beta 3. That's it. That's your turn, Antoine. We don't hear you. I don't know what you're saying.
I'm not talking. People will be able to see everything. Okay.
And that will be a great test, right? We have 6 people here.
Yes.
Have you tried concurrent access?
Oh, no, not yet.
I've tried by the past, so that should work. If Jean-Thierry didn't make it worse than before, it should work.
Just a quick demo of the text field editors.
What?
Yes, it will be quick.
No, we don't care about it. Go to the next one.
I will demo it. It's easy to demonstrate. So I have a content type with text field. You see color, email, phone, URL, text. They all have an editor, a corresponding text field editor. And if I want to create a new article, you can see that there is a color picker, an email, and a phone, and a URL field. Type URL. That was the demo. First demo. Okay, next.
At last.
The try.orchardcore.fr.
So you can open your, well, you can look at what it's doing first, and then you can do the same thing.
So I passed the link on the chat.
But don't open that right now, just see the demo.
So this is a site thanks to which you can create a demo. It will create a tenant on this site. And so you just need to enter your email address, and then the name of the site you want to create, and select a recipe. So they are the main front theme that you can use. So the agency, the blog, and the coming soon theme. Then you need to agree to the terms and conditions. So it will create a site and send you an email. So quick warning, this is just a test to start, but it's working pretty well. You have to know that any site will be reset every Monday at midnight GMT. So any site created during the week will be deleted, disabled next Monday. So I simulate the perform. The site has been created successfully. An email has been sent. Maybe it has been sent to your spam folder, so you will need to check. And it's saying it's containing a link. It's already set up. I will change the message. And it contains the credentials to access the admin. So, did I receive the link? Okay. Which one is it? This one. So first, this is the link of the front site. So this is the agency with the site name I chose, and you can also open the admin provided password. And you will be able to manage the instance from the admin. That's it.
Beautiful. So can everyone try that right now, just to create a new site? It would be awesome if you could share your link to see if it works, and on the chat, and we can do it also concurrently.
One blog submit.
What is the URL? try.orchardcore.fr.
So my demo site called blog has been created. I can open it as well, and I can try a last one. Same thing. Let's create a soon site. Coming soon. Coming soon.
It works well.
Okay, so Jasmin created one.
Me too.
Un super site. Sébastien, 2, a blog 1. Okay, thank you. That was the demo.
Thanks a lot. I already gave some feedback by mail. Also, it should be HTTPS. I forgot to mention that.
Yes. Just I was saying to myself.
And yeah, I assume that's fine if the site is already created when you click submit, because then if you still want to do that, to see it, you still need to go to your email to validate that. But well, we don't track you. Well, you don't track anyone, so there is no way to know if someone clicked on the link and went actually on the site to use it. So maybe the email will be wrong, but that's something to accept. So I mean, a site will be created even if the email is wrong, but after 1 week it will be deleted.
Yeah.
What else? Otherwise, everything else is good. It would have been nice if it was actually like 7 days for the site and not on Monday. But that's a detail. It would be nice also to have the recipes to show a thumbnail instead of a drop down. At least now it's displaying what it does.
Yeah.
You see like 3 thumbnails, like the thumbnails we already have, that might let people choose. And that's it. Recaptcha to that form, yeah, that's what I told Antoine. That's why I told him to actually create the site only when you receive the link, the email. At least it will prevent people from creating lots of sites just by submitting the form with a fake email.
Yes.
But in this case, you can't generate the admin password, which will be okay. I think maybe it was better than how you did that before. After all, if the prefix is dynamic, then it's kind of a security because nobody can know your site. So yeah, we'll see. Okay, but that's very good. Looking forward to using it and trying it. It's very nice. Good job. And the ID, I don't know where you got the ID, but it's a brilliant ID. And the feature you used to do that, I mean, it's not like we did a demo that almost did that. But that's beautifully done. That's what we wanted, someone to finish the product. That's good. Perfect. Yeah, fix the issue with you should fix the form. Just send the email and generate from the email. Otherwise, people will create lots of sites. It's bad for you. Great. Questions for Antoine or the meeting? Good. Then, well, if you have questions, send them to Antoine for the try orchard thing. Yep, so that's it. Release soon. We are waiting for 5 bugs to be fixed, not very hard bugs to be fixed, but they have to be. And 1 or 2 PRs to be merged, like the configuration one, once we have an upgrade step. Because it's better to break it now, so that everyone using beta 3 will use a new system to create the tenants and the settings, than do it later, because we break more sites. Well, it should not break because there will be an upgrade step, but at least they will use the new thing, and configuration is super important. Great, then see you on Thursday for triage and next week for the next meeting. Bye everyone, thank you for joining.